Moment of decision for Sierra Leoneans as the All People's Party APC come face to face with the ruling Sierra Leone People's Party in the country's fifth election since the end of a 10-year civil war ended in 2002. What are the issues that will determine the outcome of the polls? Also on the program, Zimbabwean experts predict tough 2023 election for Mnangagwa. Welcome to the program. This is Africa Update, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Ayuba Ilya. Now, 3.3 million out of 8.4 million Sierra Leoneans are eligible to decide who will be the president, as well as 135 members of parliament, 14 paramount chief members of parliament and councillors in the country's fifth multi-tier elections since the end of its 10-year civil war. While the incumbent President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone People's Party (SLPP) hopes to secure victory for a second term, he is being challenged by the leading opposition Samura Kamara of the All People's Congress (APC) and 11 other presidential candidates. Observers say that economic difficulties, ethnicity, and the new amendments to the country's electoral laws will determine the outcome of the election. Let's take a look at the two top contenders.
The incumbent President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone People's Party (SLPP) hopes to secure victory for a second term against the major contender Samura Kamara of All People's Congress (APC) and 11 other presidential candidates. Julius Maada Bio, a retired brigadier in the Sierra Leone Army, came to limelight after the 1996 military junta in Sierra Leone when he became head of state between January to March 1996. Bio returned Sierra Leone to a democratically elected government when he handed power to Ahmad Tejan Kaba of the Sierra Leone People's Party following Kaba's victory in the 1996 Sierra Leonean presidential election. After the transition of the country to a civilian government, Bio was granted asylum in the United States, where he lived until his return to Sierra Leone in 2005. Before his victory at the 2018 presidential election in Sierra Leone, he contested the presidential election under the SLPP against the former president Ernest Bai Koroma in 2012, where he got 37% of the votes, while the then incumbent president got 58%. Bio defeated the preferred candidate of his predecessor, Samura Kamara of the ruling All People's Congress (APC) in the runoff vote of the 2018 Sierra Leonean presidential election, with 51.8% of the votes to Kamara's 48.2%. Julius Maada Bio is a cadet graduate from Sierra Leone's Benguema Military Academy, a master's degree holder in international affairs from American University in Washington, D.C., and a Catholic married to Fatima Bio, a practicing Muslim. Samura Kamara, governor of the Bank of Sierra Leone between 2007 to 2009 and financial secretary in the Ministry of Finance during President Ahmad Tejan Kaba's administration. He was also Minister of Finance and Economic Development from 2009 to 2013. Kamara was former Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Sierra Leone under President Ernest Bai Koroma between 2012 to 2017. Before joining politics, Kamara had a successful banking career. In 1994, he was appointed program manager by the World Bank for its structural support program to the country. He also served as financial secretary during this time as part of efforts to build trust in the management of the mainly international donor flows, which constituted over 3/4 of the government's non-military financial receipts. He became Secretary of State, Finance in January 1996 after Julius Maada Bio overthrew Valentine Stresser. A commission of inquiry set up in 2018 by President Mahathir Bio to investigate the APC-led administration of his predecessor, Ernest Bai Koroma, indicted over 300 senior officials of the administration, including Samura Kamara. An outcome that remains controversial.
Now, earlier I spoke to Austin Ayegbe, an election observer who is at the moment in Freetown, Sierra Leone, monitoring the election. Take a listen. What are the issues that are going to are at the front burner in these elections? What are the issues that concerns the people of Sierra Leone as they go for these polls?
Number one is where the candidate comes from, whether the north or south. Right now, it is sharply divided. APC candidate is from the north, LCLPP candidate is from the south. Two, the relationship that people think about their living standard, economy, is very important. Three, people feel strongly about security, that their lives is better saved with democracy. And of course, the international standard they've made. The current, as we speak now, Sierra Leone has become there was recently made a member of the National Security, the Security Council, the United Nations Security Council, which is a credit to the current regime. And just to add, there are people also particular about what has happened to their airport, that their airport has had a facelift. Also, from 16% threshold where the airport was by rating in 2018 is about 80-something% now. People have talked about that maybe that will give the incumbent an advantage. But in all of this, the major determinant is where you come from and the economy. People talked about hunger. Sincerely, the price of goods is really high in Sierra Leone. A bottle of Coke, which goes for as low as 200 naira in Nigeria, is about 10, 15, 18 Leone, which is almost like 1,000 naira with comparison. Sierra Leone is impacted by a rising the amount of exchange in the dollar rate. So, for example, the dollar right now costs over 2,000 Leone. Just 2 days ago, yesterday, it's gradually coming down, and people say that the drop in the price of dollar has not to do with the improvement in the economy. It had to do with the influx of dollar into the country, which has apparently been done by election observers, international observers coming to the country, international media coming to the country, coming in with a number of huge amount of money, particularly the European Union, the ECOWAS, the African Union, and many other international organizations. So the way it is, the more dollar, as it's clear, the more dollar into the country, the possibility that the local currency will drop because of the demand for the local currency. The dollar may then drop, giving rise to the local currency. That is there. But people also argue that the education is not where they want to be and all of that, even though the current administration has prided itself as having to pilot free education up to secondary school level, and that it has reduced teenage pregnancy, which has become like an hallmark in the country. Teenage pregnancy, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old, get pregnant, and there's a lot of dropout and pride is returning to school, particularly teenage girls are returning to school who hitherto are put out of school because of economic challenge.
Okay. Now, some amendments have been done on the country's electoral law. Chief among them is the issue of, the proportional representation system. How are some of these changes going to impact on the conduct of the election, especially that proportional representation?
Yes, so the country passed in December 2022 the Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Act, which is called GWE Act 2022. That act provides opportunity where for any nomination, there should be at least 30% of women representation. After that act, there was also the Public Election Act, which now gave effect to some of those provisions in the GWE Act. The Public Election Act has made it mandatory that for political party to submit nomination, names of nomination, there must be at least for every 3 names, 1 has to be a woman. But beyond that is the parliamentarians and the councillors, which is generally the legislature, the legislative arm. That is where they introduce in the Electoral Act the district block system, enabling political power, political parties to take charge. So for you to secure a seat in any election, you must have a minimum, not as an individual, but as a party, 11.9% of the total vote cast in that election, in that district. For your party to be considered for a seat, your party must secure 11.9%. It has an advantage, but this is the flip side. For the women who have been nominated, usually the women's name they told to be able to secure all 3 nominations, the men will still form the bulk of the parliament in Sierra Leone. Except for the ruling parties, where they have comparative advantage, like I told you, where they have their stronghold, they may win all of the seats and have majority of the votes, which means the 2 men and the woman will automatically be nominated. Where that does not happen, there's a likelihood that only the men will eventually dominate. The 30% threshold may not be seen in the parliament. Again, their parliamentary representation is already more than what we have in Nigeria. They have about 12% female representation in their parliament, which is already more than Nigeria election. But as it is, there's a hope that for the South, where the ruling parties have domineering power in terms of popularity, they may end up having all of their 3 women being sent to the National Assembly, to the parliament. Then in the North, where you have the APC having majority of popularity, they may also have their 3rd number list, which is usually the female sent to the parliament. But if you flip it around, the ruling party in the North may not be able to secure majority. So the women nominated for the ruling party in the North may not be able to get to the parliament. The same thing, if you flip it around, the APC in the South, their nomination for their female nomination, which is on the 3rd number, will not be able to go to the parliament. That is a weakness of their architecture. Another weakness coming from the Nigerian election is that though the district block introduced has a comparative advantage in terms of reducing the cost of elections.
A report that we've seen recently says that about 60% of Sierra Leoneans are not really aware about this PR system. Don't you think that it will give room for manipulation? And then how are Sierra Leoneans responding to this change in the electoral law?
So PRO system is not new to Sierra Leone. They've always run the PRO system. What is new is the block of what they want to do is known. That was the initial framework. So you know the parliamentarian contesting, a male, a female. Once you have about 5% of the vote, you are eligible to be sent to the parliament. Once you have that 5% or thereabout. But now it is no longer 5%, it's now 11.9%. And it's no longer individual, it's not political party. In this case, the voters will not see the name of the candidate on the ballot. What they will see is the party on the ballot. Once they vote the party, it is the party they are voting for. Again, when you say 60% of Sierra Leoneans are not aware, it depends on which statistics you are looking at. The Electoral Commission has said that they've mobilized CSOs across the country to go do some form of awareness, some form of knowledge building. And CSOs I've seen on Twitter doing all of those. In fact, I see partner organizations like SEN, like Slawich, posting out information booklet, even 50-50 group. I've seen CGG, I've seen New posting out electoral information. But people who want INEC to do, usually, the Electoral Commission, to do those awareness.
About trust issue now on the electoral umpire. How, are people going to take the outcome that will come with this election? This is about credibility of the commission now.
That's exactly what the APC has raised in their position. There's a trust deficit. A country running an election less than a week would not have a cleaned up voter register. Even though the commission said they released the voter register to all of the parties, but the APC claimed that they technically removed some information of voters out from the register. However, the Electoral Commission has also explained that. Maybe if I have the time, I could explain their position. That is a challenge, but the challenge is not absolute. So, in every country, whether it's in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Angola, in the Gambia, in Liberia, in many of the countries, I have seen elections. Ahead of every election, there's usually certain perception that those who are appointed, the commissioners who will be in charge of the elections, will always play to the whims and the caprices of the appointee. That is a story also in Sierra Leone. The APC has raised it. They are calling for the resignation of the Electoral Committee chair because it was not duly nominated. But the Electoral Commissioner, the Chief Electoral Commissioner, which is the chair of the commission, has responded. In his response, he claimed that when the president nominated him, he faced the parliament and the parliament cleared him, which is also consistent with our Nigerian model. For the register, there's something unique about Sierra Leone, which I think other countries have to buy into or take a leaf from, even though Ghana is already doing it too. Once you are registered, you can vote without your voter's card. That is so unique. All you need to do on election day is to walk to the polling station where you registered. Some details are with them that only you know. It's like password. They could ask you, Ayuba, what's your middle name? You will say it. Which month and year were you born? You will say it. What's your mother's name? You will say it. If those questions are not consistent, you will not vote. So those codes are what they kept away from the APC and from the political parties, as it were, that the APC is actually arguing about, that you have to give us the details. And the commission is saying, if we give you these details, the challenge is there could be some duplication and personification, personality issue, where people can go and create the ID card to vote on election day. If there will be codes like, what's your mother's name? And the party have access to those codes, they can easily create a dummy to stand in the name of, for example, Ayuba, you are supposed to vote in District 101, for example. And I know that you are at home. I can quickly run to that District 101 and present myself as Ayuba, and I will answer those questions and I will vote. By the time you come in, the real voter, you will not be allowed to vote because your name would have been ticked already on the register. Those trust is the issue that the parties, the political party, particularly the APC, has brought to the table to say this is a challenge. And among others too, is that the APC has also alleged that the Electoral Commission has introduced an application, an app, which will send results from the polling station straight to the national office, and that they don't want the commission to use it. Because according to the APC, it's like walking back from the result. So the commission would have already have an idea of the results. So they cannot call the district or the region coalition officer to say, what number do you have there? Can you change it to the one we have in the headquarters? So those kind of things are the challenge that has come up. But the commission has consistently stated that they be more open, they continue to release press statements and all of that. Whether that meets the yearnings of the people is a secondary thing. The sharp division in the population, the North and the South, is very clear when you have conversation with people in the state, in the country. If you speak to someone who has affiliation with the APC, you are going to see that sentiment very strongly. If you speak to someone who have affiliation with the SLPP, you're going to see that strong that perception. If you speak to SLPP, they'll tell you election is going on. SLPP is going to win. Well, we know the processes. We know what's happening. If you speak to someone who have allegiance to APC, it will tell you Electoral Commission is doing things in the dark. They are not opening up. They are not doing this. They are not doing that. So it's a challenge. And that sharp division along political lines is a major challenge I have seen in the electoral landscape.
How do you think that this challenge will impact on the chances of the top contenders? That's the top candidate for the presidential election, talking about Madabayo and Samaru Kamara.
It will. It will. So what is happening is that when you know your stronghold, you hold it strongly. You then try to move over to your opposition stronghold and get some votes. And that was how the current president won election in 2018. So he got some votes from the North, and it ran into it went to a second run-up, and eventually he got the percentile to be declared the president. Freetown is more like the home ground of the APC. Maybe Freetown is in the South. If you go to elsewhere in the North, where they have a stronghold of the APC, SLPP has also been able to penetrate. So whoever wins this election, if it's SLPP, it's victory for a particular jurisdiction. If it's APC, it's victory for the other. I mean, that's the way they live their life, and the people are okay with it. Each one is wanting to win an election, and they are all glad to win election. At the end of the day, it sent a very strong message. But before you win an election, you must have votes from your opponent's stronghold. And that's the reason for the 52%, not just 50%, or a first past the post, 50 plus 1. No, it's 52%. You have to cross the 50%.
How do you think that we can guarantee a peaceful election, even post election, and do all through the times of announcing the results and all that?
For Sierra Leone, I think they've learned their lesson from previous issues, particularly the August 10th, 2022 incident that happened that claimed lives of civilians and military personnel. There's a common agreement that there is one Sierra Leone is one family, one country. There is no ethnicity, there is no tribalism, there is no religion. It's Sierra Leone. That conversation is ongoing, and it's ongoing very strongly. 2, the intervention of international partners. The European Union, for example, the Goodluck Jonathan just had a meeting with the opposition leader, and he also met with the electoral committee chair. He has met with civil society organizations. The same thing with former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who is leading the Commonwealth Observer Mission, has also met with all of the stakeholders. African Union is doing the same thing. ECOWAS is doing the same thing. Ibis Chambers is leading some peace architecture, talking to these stakeholders to maintain peace. The reason why I said that the narrative is changing, the same opposition leader, Dr. Kamara, who had talked about protest, strongly, has not come out for his supporters to maintain peace. And that is the way to go. Peace, peace, and peace.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing this insight with us. We look forward to having you join us again.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're watching Africa Updates on Trust TV. Coming up shortly, we take a look at predictions of experts in Zimbabwe on the 2023 election for Mnangagwa. Join us again. Welcome back. You're watching Africa Update on Trust TV, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Now, Zimbabwean political analysts predict that the ruling ZANU-PF and its presidential candidate Emmerson Mnangagwa will face challenges as they seek another term in office amid a poorly performing economy and an opposition looking to capitalize on gaining support ahead of the August 23rd polls. For more, VOA correspondent Columbus Mavunga produced this report that details the positions of authorities, opposition members and analysts.
On August 23, Zimbabwe will hold a general election with the country mired in an economic crisis with the prices of goods and services on the rise. Independent political analyst Rejoice Ngwenya says President Emmerson Mnangagwa is having a hard time convincing voters his party is making life better for people.
With the local currency fast losing value in the average Zimbabwean facing price-related poverty, it will be very difficult for President Mnangagwa to sell his economic agenda to exasperated Zimbabweans.
The Citizens Coalition for Change, or CCC, is Zimbabwe's main opposition party, led by Nelson Chamisa. Fadzaima Here, spokeswoman for the party, which is also known as Triple C, says the opposition is being treated unfairly.
The Constitution also requires that we be given the voters' roll in advance. It's not fair that ZANU-PF appear to have the voters' roll, which is why Mr. Mnangagwa was able to send SMSs to citizens using the new boundaries, and yet the Triple C, a key player, doesn't have the same. We also call for an end to the political violence.
Zimbabwe's previous elections, especially the 2008 vote, were marred by violence against the opposition. This time, President Mnangagwa has been calling for peaceful elections. The Zimbabwe Elections Support Network is a coalition of non-governmental organizations formed to promote democratic processes and fair elections. Andrew Makoni from the network says the coalition's main concern is seeing a fair election result.
Judging by the kind of challenges experienced by those who went to inspect the voters' roll, we foresee that if the voters' roll is not properly audited, a lot of names will be missing from the voters' roll. A lot of people will find it difficult to access their polling stations, and this will not augur well for this election. It will taint the election.
Zimbabwe's Electoral Commission turned down a request for an interview, saying it would hold a press conference as the elections approach.
And that wraps it up for Africa Update for this week. Join us next week for another time on the program. I am Ayuba Ila. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.